Thank you, Lyman. Next up, we have another Austinite, Barbara Randals Gregg. Barbara has 2 poems in the anthology on pages 144 and 148. Please welcome Barbara Gregg.
First poem I'm going to read is about a quilt. And I don't know whether it's on 144 or 148, but it's one of those two. Quilts have been around for such a long time, and for the longest time, it was the original recycling, because this was, if that was still in one piece, you could put it into a quilt. And so a lot of material ended up that way. And that was really the only way that a lot of women had to do their art, because that's what they did. Best, the smallest stitches, straightest lines, and the best designs. And it's really funny because now suddenly, younger women have discovered quilts. And they like them, and I'm so glad. Yeah. So this one is called, I have to get my glasses on. I guess there are worse things than being turned into pillows. I was born years ago. All my life I had their memories of family or friends who helped create me. I carried pieces of them long after they were gone. Mary Alice, whose sky blue go-to-meeting dress finally tore along the seam, gave it to make 2 center rings. She said, "My Gram got a double wedding ring when she married, and we buried her in it. I want to give this one to my son and his girl when they wed in the spring." Her quilting circle got busy collecting remnants, got scraps from the Ott twins, their outgrown baby blankets, mostly from Jeffrey, the colicky one, stains and all. The batting was donated by Liz Wilson since her son was lost in the war, so his homecoming quilt wasn't needed. She was glad it would be used for a wedding quilt. Those Sunday afternoons, they pulled the quilting frame down from the summer bedroom's ceiling, got extra chairs out, made lemonade and tea cakes. Those long afternoons were filled with laughter, sometimes gossip, quiet spoken, snacks and kitchen smells. I was born in the fall and smelled like apple pie when my new married couple crawled under me on their first night in their own bed. Made them feel like their house was already a home, my special gift. Sometimes during quilting afternoons, little Barbara's mama let little Barbara work stitches around the edges of the double wedding ring. At 7, her stitches weren't even or very straight, and her knots were just big old blobs. So after she went outside to play, her mama took those stitches out and replaced them with her own straight, even line. Barbara never knew the difference until her sister Mildred teased her about it. From what I heard, sometimes those sisters were just tacky to each other. After creation, I was treated with the utmost care. All my life, people praised me, say, "Just beautiful and warm, a comfort in your old age." People would recognize pieces of me from their tablecloths, skirts, and blouses. Sometimes, after food spills or smoky fireplaces, I'd get a bath. Not with that old lye soap either. Gentle soaking with ivory flakes and pin it on the line to dry. Well, I'm faded now with small holes and tears. Well, I've been around for 4 generations, but I still sleep with the baby because I'm so soft. Some of the family's grander quilts are put up on the wall to show off. I never was. But I heard the other day I might get turned into pillows to preserve some of the best pieces of me. I guess there are worse things that could happen at the end of a life. My second poem is about Brushy Bill Roberts, who died in Hyco, Texas, which is where I grew up. It's really small if you don't know where it is. It is in Texas, I promise. But he was one of 26 different people who claimed to be Billy the Kid, long after Billy was dead. But in his particular case, they had a lot of evidence that he might be telling the truth, never knew. And so some people got together, and in 1952, they petitioned the governor of New Mexico to try to get a pardon for him, because he was promised a pardon long before, and that he didn't get it. So what happened is he went there, and went to, this was when it was, what was his name, Lew Wallace was the governor. No, Lew Wallace was the governor in 1881. When he went to see the other governor, the new governor, he got very confused. They think he might have had a stroke, and so he didn't do very well, and it was kind of a disaster, and he came back to Hyco, and then in about 3 or 4 days, he died walking to the Hyco post office of a stroke. And of course, at that point, nobody knows for sure whether or not he ever told the truth. So, this is Brushy Bill Roberts' last story, 1959 to 1952. 1859 to 1952. I shouldn't have been in Lincoln County Jail anyways. See, Governor Wallace back then wrote me a letter saying he'd pardon me if I testified against the 2 boys who murdered Sheriff Bradley for killing Mr. Tunsil. I finally said, okay, I would. But after the boys was convicted by my words, that rapscallion Wallace went back on his letter and decided to hang me too. Made me so mad I broke jail. Shot 2 deputies. One of them was my friend too. He started for Mexico. But before I left, I stopped to see my sweetie in Fort Sumter. I had a friend, Pete Maxwell, there, and wasn't scared, even though Pat Garrett was the law. He was telling everybody he was going to kill me, for sure. But we were friends back before he got a badge, so I didn't take it too serious. One night, I finally decided to leave. I was telling Sweetie goodbye when Billy Barlow said he was going over to Pete's house real quick to get some grub for traveling. He didn't even put his boots on. A few minutes later, I heard some banging and 2 loud shots. I went to the door and heard men yelling, "Sheriff Garrett shot Billy the Kid." Well, I didn't wait around to put them right. Just jumped my horse and took off. I wasn't dead in 1881, no sir. I've gone by many names, but I've been Ollie P. Roberts for a good while here in Hyco. Most folks around here call me Brushy Bill, and that probably will be my last name. I've been feeling poorly since we got back from asking for a pardon in New Mexico last week. Governor Mabry and his people in Santa Fe asked me a bunch of mean questions. I got real nervous, so I messed up. Couldn't even remember all the men I killed. Just thinking of it, my heart gallops and my breath kind of stops. I was scared because New Mexico still wants to hang Billy Bonney for killing 2 deputies when he broke jail over in Lincoln County. But it'll soon be 1953, and now I'm old. Too old to try for another pardon. I guess that's the end of that.
So one of the things that's been just wonderful about the reading tonight is the readers from around the state that have journeyed here to read for us. So our next reader is one of these, Charlotte Renk, who is living in the Fort Worth area, is that right?
Yeah, Athens.
Athens, so from Athens, Texas. She and I actually were co-winners of a chapbook contest in 2014 with Blue Forest Press. I'm just delighted she made her way down. Charlotte's poem is on page 164. Please welcome Charlotte Renk.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Scott. What an honor to be here. Oh my, this is a very shaky, whatever. Imagine, if you will, a Hebrew scholar of the Kabbalah turned philosopher studying Spinoza, turned hermit goat walking in the Sonoran Desert. I'm talking about a man who became a leader of the sanctuary movement, Jim Corbett, author of Goat Walking. 15 years ago, I went out to Cascabel, which means rattlesnake, in Arizona to see my son, who was managing a ranch out there. And he said, "Mama, we're going to go out to see Jim Corbett." I said, "What?" He said he lives on about 15 miles up the road, a dirt road, out in the Sonoran Desert. So we went there, and we visited with Jim Corbett, Spinozan scholar, goat walker, hermit, and he took us out to the pasture. His toes were curved over one another. He was crippled. He barely wore sandals that just barely stayed on his feet. He led us out to visit old Stripe, his favorite old bull that he'd used to pull up stumps, to pull old tractors and trucks around the place, which he ended up killing and eating at the end of his life when he was no longer useful. And somebody said, "Jim, how could you do that?" And he said, "I know old Stripe. I loved old Stripe. I fed him well and loved him well. I'd never want to eat anybody I didn't know that well." Corbett's Conatus is a reference to Spinoza's philosophy about nature. And in fact, Spinoza suffered because he believed that nature was God, and he said so. And it was the will to live. And he believed that was sacred, and that was God. Corbett's Conatus. When the wind wails a dirge and snow sifts in rivulets through the sagebrush, I've hugged the sticky pink, death-chilled body of a newborn lamb under my coat, and its heart fluttered in reply. Jim Corbett. Though fingers and toes gnarled, folding over each other, I clenched my staff, tap, tap, tapping, poking parched sands of Sonora's desert lands, saguaro juniper, mesquite, ocotillo, yucca, catclaw, aramite, seeking sacred life and peace. I trekked rock-rugged terrain, climbing craggy canyons and hidden dreams. Some folks called my late life Kabbalah, for I'd fused a fractured Judaic and Quaker doctrine consistent with Spinoza's Conatus, nature's law, life's will to persist. True, I did walk and talk to cows amid mystic canyons, and when cows were old and done with scant grass grazing, done with pulling old posts, deep roots and heavy loads, I killed them and ate them. And yes, I did kill old Stripe, my favorite bull, whom I'd led and fed as friend, and when he was done with striving and blessing, I ate him in allegiance to the peaceable kingdom of our co-creative communion. How can you eat what you've loved, you ask? I answer, I avoid eating anyone I haven't known and cherished. In a time before cow time, I walked goats for my soul. I drank their milk and foraged desert greens and seeds. Then I met a refugee, fleeing death from Central America, fleeing arrest, degradation, and deportation from my America. Later, I donned black as Padre Jaime, and I crossed borders past Nogales to El Santuario Nuestra Senora de Guadalupe to rescue Guatemalans, Nicaraguans, Salvadorans seeking asylum. Old goat herder herding, I escaped attention, suspicion, and you know how it is with power. He ignores the humble. We ushered nearly 1 million folks in an overground sanctuary before we were discovered, arrested, indicted. I said, we will not cease. And we didn't. Aging hermit, semi-exiled, I walked Cascabel's wild, and I saw God in every other, whether mesquite or man, mountain lion or calf, coyote or cactus, time fused. And on a desert mountain, amidst the hush of soaring granite, in a time before this time, I learned that to open a forgotten spring, long ago gone dry, to know of a place where a juniper is a nurse tree for Sawara, is to know sacred conatus, to see God in every other, to feel life rivulet in a heart's flutter. Well, I only had the one here, so I would like to read a poem from a friend of mine, Loretta Diane Walker. And she wrote, and I'll read the tribute, she wrote this poem called I Am Rose, and it appears on page 50. And I'm having a hard time reading this. The plaintive courtship themed 1853, lyrics of the Yellow Rose of Texas fed the minstrel genre by depicting an African-American singer. Now, I can do this because Loretta is African-American, and it is a tribute to an African-American. And it says, this African-American singer who is longing to return to a yellow girl, a term used to describe a mulatta or mixed race, genre, female, born of African-American and white progenitors. This iconic song of modern Texas and a popular traditional American tune has experienced several transformations of its lyrics and periodic revivals in popularity since its appearance in the 1850s. And so Loretta wrote this song, or this poem, I guess, poems or songs, I Am Rose. This is what you'll find if you unzip history. Music pulsing in the cage of my ribs. In the dark pipe of his longing, my man makes a song for me. White notes burst in his belly when he thinks about the full nectar of my lips. He keeps my name in the pocket of his tongue, calls me his yellow girl. Anonymity doesn't keep me safe from the long arms of lust. My beauty is a magnet. He sings of diamonds and dew. The hard light of my eyes is a hammer drumming against hungry hands, reaching to lift the skirt of my womanhood.